more Russian threats to now NATO allies. Romania becoming the second member of NATO, reporting that Russian drones crossed into their airspace this week. EU Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen calling this a blatant violation of EU sovereignty and a serious threat to regional security. It comes just days after Poland shot down more than a dozen Russian drones into its airspace. Poland's foreign minister confirming the drones were capable of carrying ammunition, but were not loaded with explosives, writing they were all duds, and that Russia was trying to test Poland and NATO. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk rejecting President Trump's idea that the initial drone incursion may have been a mistake, though he clarified that he was very unhappy with Russia, the way President Trump is not happy with Vladimir Putin. Joining me now is the Secretary of State of Poland. He is also the chief of the International Policy Bureau, Marcin Przydacz. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Very good morning, Maria. Thank you for having me.
Can you assess what you have witnessed in Poland in terms of the drones from Russia?
Well, I do. We do have reports clarifying very openly that there were almost two dozens of Russian drones. They were sent by Russia, produced in Russia, and it was a pure provocation, incursion in the Polish and NATO airspace. So we do have quite clear reports on that. Some of those drones were shut down by Polish and NATO capabilities. F-35, which are flying over Polish airspace, were capable to shut them down. But what we can expect, of course, that could be even more provocative steps taken by Russia in the future. That's why we are ready to defend our airspace, and that's why we are in a close collaboration and cooperation with our allies, including President Trump. My boss, President Nawrocki, already had a phone call with President Trump, providing him with all the detailed information on this event.
Well, what do these two leaders think about this, sir? I mean, you've got President Trump and now the president of Poland acknowledging that drones have come into Russian airspace. There is an agreement among NATO countries. You attack one country, the entire bloc will respond. Are you expecting a response?
Well, if there would be a full-scale invasion, of course, what we would expect is to fulfill the obligation of Article 5. But as for now, it seems it's just a provocative step taken by Russia to check the reaction of the Polish army and the reaction of NATO allies, whether they are divided or united. And what we have shown throughout the last 4 days, it's the unity and solidarity. The United States, but also our European allies, they expressed their solidarity, their unity, and they've sent additional capabilities and troops to Poland, including additional fighter jets to secure our airspace. So the goal of Russia to divide NATO, they didn't achieve this goal, and the other goal, of course, was to threat Poland. Poles are brave enough not to be threatened, but of course we take it quite seriously. So the more active reaction of the international community will see, the better chances for Russia not to repeat this negative scenario and provocative scenario again.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I recognize that this did not, hurt anyone, that you say that these drones were duds and they did not have ammunition on it, but you did have to temporarily close 4 airports, including Warsaw's main hub. So what has been the impact of these drones on Poland and the civilians there?
Well, during the night, of course, the airspace partly in Poland was closed, mostly for our jet fighters to have a clear clear space to conduct this operation. So it was quite natural. Of course, many Poles were a bit worried with what may be the final outcome of this, having in mind, that there are 21 Russian drones heading towards Polish territory. We didn't know whether there is ammunition or not. But even without ammunition, hostile 200 kilograms drones, they are somehow a threat already. If you don't have any contact with them or you cannot control them. That's why they had to be shut down, and we do expect that Russia will not repeat this. But when it comes to infosphere, that's very important, because immediately the entire war of information, hybrid operation in terms of info or media sphere was launched by Russia. A lot of disinformation spread throughout Poland, that there were no Russian drones, that maybe there were Ukrainians or, I don't know, Belarusians, that kind of fake news. So we need to be very vigilant, and we need to be very accurate by spreading the proper information on this.
And we should point out that the officials in Belarus, which of course is a Russian ally, claimed that the drones entered Polish airspace by mistake. You do not believe this was a mistake?
No, we do not believe that it was a mistake. Of course, there were hundreds of drones heading towards Ukraine, and many of them already hit the target in Ukraine, or they were eliminated by Ukrainian air forces. But those 21 drones, they were not by mistake in Poland. It was a on-purpose step taken by Russia, and we are 100% sure of that.
We also understand that more than 20,000 Polish civilians have enlisted in voluntary military training this year. The number expected to double by the end of the year, Secretary. Are the people expecting war with Russia?
No, we don't want any war, and that's why we need to be prepared for such a war, as the old Latin saying, if you don't want a war, be prepared for one. That's why we spend almost 5% of GDP on our security budget. We are absolutely #1 among NATO allies, mostly to deter Russia. We don't want any affair, we don't want any conflict, but we need to be strong enough to send a proper strategic message towards Moscow. Don't even try. We are strong, and we are strong also with our alliance. We are stronger together and having good allies all around the Euro-Atlantic region. That's why we buy so many American equipment, the best equipment in the world: F-35, F-16, HIMARS, Patriots, Apache helicopters. All this stuff is being produced in America and exported to Poland. We pay quite a lot, several dozens of billions of dollars each year we spend on military budget. So only to protect ourselves and to deter Russia, to keep the message, stay aware. We stay away of Poland. We are strong enough.
Of course, and this is one of the topics that President Trump discussed when he welcomed your new president, Karol Nawrocki, to the White House about a week ago. The leaders discussed strengthening their alliances, maintaining a strong U.S. military presence in Poland, and the fact that Poland was the first to raise defense spending close to that 5% level. What do you think the U.S. and Poland can do together? What are the opportunities here post this meeting, Secretary?
Well, I was attending this meeting. I was sitting just next to my president in the Oval Office. It was a very, very good meeting. I mean, among good friends and good allies. As you know, Poland is probably the most pro-American, pro-Atlantic country in Europe. And President Nawrocki, as a conservative politician, he's very close to President Trump. What they discussed, of course, security challenges, but also the business of opportunities. We are quite a big importer of American LNG, having this 3 Cs format, 12 countries in Central Europe. We can expand the cooperation with American LNG exporters in order to buy more LNG from America, to provide Europe with energy security instead of Russian gas, but also to make a business opportunity for you guys, for America. And the second thing, of course, military cooperation. As I told you, billions of dollars are being spent on American equipment, and we need to continue that. And the final thing is the presence of American troops in Poland. Poland, the best conditions for American troops, because the cost of their stationing in Poland is on us, on Polish
Yes.
taxpayers, not on American ones.
And of course, we've got 700,000 or 800,000 Polish Americans in Pennsylvania who apparently supported President Trump. Secretary, before you go, real quick, all of that said, what do you want to say to your European colleagues who are still buying Russian oil, in effect funding this war?
Well, my message towards all those who are still doing business with Russia is stop it, guys, cut it off, just like Poland did many years ago. We don't want to finance Putin's regime with European money. So
Yes.
whoever is buying oil or gas from Russia, stop doing this, and let's concentrate on the good cooperation with good ally, which is the United States of America. That would be my message to my European friends.
Well, Secretary, we appreciate the friendship that we have with Poland, and we appreciate your time. We'll be watching this developing story, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.